I have this thing where my therapist will say, she's like, you give expectations all the way up here because that's what you give. And like you expect everybody to be you.
Hmm.
And that's just not the case. So I had to level set I had to like check my expectations because sometimes it always just leads to disappointment. I'd rather like have expectations, but have them not be like, this company is going to save my life. That doesn't, no. How about you might save the company? Your life might save the company. Like, think about it backwards.
I love that. I think that low expectations in life is one of the real secrets to being in a good
You know,
spot.
low expectations let you, like, this coffee is the best thing I've ever had today or this week.
Yeah.
Like, I really do. And I think, again, that's something that has come from my personal life that I've been able to like transition into my professional life is the littlest things can make you happy. Or like if you complete that one task on your list, like that's great. And the little things like really do keep me going. Like that's why I like things like cooking or whatever, is because it's just a place to like turn your brain off and kind of just enjoy that moment. And I think that the more that you can bring that into your work and actually enjoy the little things. And for me, that piece of it was managing people. I loved managing people. So I got a lot of joy out of that, of like helping them, and those little things that I could do for them, like went a long way for them, but also for me. So um yeah, just really interesting how your personal and professional, again, like that's why I'm like, okay, maybe more of me can come to work with me.
Right.
So
Yeah, I almost feel like I went the other way. I feel like early career disappointments led me to finally relax in my personal life. It's like it is interesting. It's like, oh, wait a second, lower my career expectations a little bit. And hey, life is actually a lot chiller too.
yeah.
When you mention the your interest in being a manager, I'd love to dig into that now and also get into what you're up to these days, because
Mhm.
I feel like you're embarking on a path in your career that is really fascinating. And if you're really interested in management, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to be laying someone off at some point in your career, right?
Mhm.
And so now that you've gone through that experience, I always like to find those little silver linings. And one is, as I was getting laid off of my last job, I was like, well, I'm a career coach, so this is great. I'm going to get to use this as a storytelling mechanism someday. And here we are with a podcast years later.
Yeah.
But it's just so funny how, like, if we don't go through a layoff, if you're just a manager who got a job, stayed at the company for 30 years, and then you have to go lay people off and you've never been in that situation yourself, I feel like it's a real detriment for the person that you're laying off at the time in the future.
Mhm.
And so it's almost like a real blessing to give you training. Like, we can look at a layoff as career training to know what it's like to be on that side of things, so that when we're on the other side of it years down the road, we can be better. And I'm really curious, as you're like getting into this world of going down the path of becoming, like, the best manager you can be, what are some of the things that you're realizing are really important? You're mentioning those little things, but what little things maybe would have made the layoff a little bit better? If you were to fast forward 10 years to a point in time where you're the one on the other side of the screen.
There's a lot more groundwork I would have done beforehand, and not even like once I knew that a layoff was happening. I just hope to have a really good relationship with the people that I'm managing. Not overbearing one where I'm like, okay, tell me everything about your life, but I hope that they trust me at the end of the day. I don't know if that's something that I could have said about my manager, and that's upsetting. So it's like that already is something that can be fixed. That it would have, in a weird way, it would have been easier to be laid off by somebody that I trust, which is so weird. But and actually one of my best friends there she was leading the whole layoff, but she was in HR leading the whole layoff project. So she couldn't even tell me. So like, we're still friends.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey man, you couldn't tell me. I understand that. Like, it's cool. I'm good. Like, I'm really good. She's like, the only reason I couldn't, like, didn't tell you, is because I knew that you would be okay.
Yeah.
It's because I trust her and she knows the kind of person that I am. So that's the first thing, is I just hope that, maybe I can build a relationship where like, and again, that still sucks, but it is what it is. The other thing is what happens post layoff really does matter. the people that reach out really do matter. And I know that as a manager, we're supposed to take the side of the company. That doesn't mean that you can't speak friend to friend. Like, you guys worked together for a year and a half. It's really, really surprising sometimes, like who does and who doesn't reach out. And that's more on them than it is on me. And I think that I was the oldest one on my team, or the most experienced. I won't even say oldest. I'll say most experienced one on my team that was laid off, like the most senior. So everybody was like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, you take a day, tell whoever you want, don't tell whoever you want. Like, you just have to come to grips with it yourself in a day or two so that you don't have to like carry it on for a week. It's super interesting because the first thing that I felt was shame. Of course, I was like so embarrassed. I'm like, how does this happen? I'm killing it at my job. I don't understand how I could be laid off, but circumstances beyond anybody's control. My whole team just got laid off. It was just easier to cut the whole team and to keep the other half of the team. I get it. And it's hard to not feel valued by a company. Just as a person, you want to feel valued. And I've said this before, but I think that it's not that. It's a shift of your values are different now than the company's values. And maybe that happened over the year and a half that you were there, that your values somewhere became misaligned. But if they're laying you off, that company is no longer good for you either. So you kind of have to like take that back on yourself and be like, okay, maybe this is going to be the best thing. And now I get the opportunity to go find, you know, what I want to do next and where I want to be. And that's exactly what I did. I was laid off at the end of June, the very last day. They technically made our last day the next month, so we would have insurance for the month, which was nice. Awesome. So they gave us insurance for a month, which was great. But that weekend was 4th of July. So I'm like, what the heck am I going to do that whole week? And like, so I took my time. I like went and saw my family. My mom freaked out. It was awesome. And she was actually bringing so much more anxiety to me. I'm like, stop.
Right?
I'm like, Mom, I'm fine. I can be unemployed for a year if I want to. I don't want to because I will literally go insane, but it's okay. And don't you think that, like, not that I want to, but the first people I'm going to ask for money is you guys. I'm sorry, but you guys are going to, if I need help, like, I'm coming to you, and thank you for being even like a thought that I can do that, but chill out. You're making me more anxious. Like, don't tell me that I'm supposed to be more anxious. Like, it's really not helping.
That's so interesting. Yeah. It's like when someone tells you to calm down, that doesn't help. But when someone makes you more anxious, that really, really doesn't help.
Yeah. Like, well, Bridget, what have you been doing? I'm like, Mom, it's been 3 days and it's literally 4th of July weekend. I'm drinking on the boat right now. Like I would be if I had, like, it's fine.
Are you not networking on the 4th of July for a new job? That's no one's going to meet with me.
But on the Monday after, and it was interesting because there were a few people that made a LinkedIn post like right away. There are a few people that waited to like collect themselves, like whatever you need to do. Either way is totally fine. It's just whenever you feel like you're ready to do it. I waited the weekend and I posted and I already had a decent like following it just from G2 and just like starting to post on there as myself and just like the things that like we talked about earlier. And the amount of people not like that liked it was insane because it just like kind of went everywhere. And to people, I was making connections with people that I had never talked to before because of it goes into their networks. Obviously, you know how it works, but I wasn't even shocked. Like my comment section was all people that had worked with me or networked with me in the past, just saying like, you have to hire this person, or like, I've worked with Bridget on X, Y, and Z. It wasn't people like, here's a job. It was like people advocating for me, which was huge. And that was so validating for me. And I won't say it wasn't. Like, it really was like, oh, I actually do know what I'm doing. I'm good at my job. I'm good at this. I'm good at connecting with people and talking to people. Like I'm going to be fine.